My first job of the day is convincing myself that the alarm is not a personal attack. This is difficult because the alarm has chosen violence. It does not gently introduce morning. It arrives like the building is being evacuated. I turn it off and immediately begin a negotiation with time that has never ended in my favor. If I lie here for 7 more minutes, I can still get ready. If I skip one step, I can recover 3 minutes. If I wear the outfit I already planned, I can avoid standing in front of the closet, asking a shirt what kind of day it thinks this is. This is where the first job appears. Before I am an education professional, writer, podcaster, student, husband, organizer, artist, or person answering a message that begins with, "Do you have a second?" I am the morning manager of Cable Briar, a department with inconsistent staffing and very strong opinions about presentation. The morning manager has to assess the body, the weather, the meetings, the energy, the hair, the shoes, the lunch situation, and whether the glasses I want to wear will make sense with the rest of the face. Some people call this getting dressed. I call it pre-production. Jay can be ready with the calm efficiency of a person who respects a plan. I can have a plan and still decide at the last moment that the entire silhouette has betrayed the concept. He will ask, "Did you not pick that out last night?" I did. Last night was optimistic. Morning has new information. This is the many channels of cable, and today I want to talk about having too many jobs, including the jobs nobody pays you for because they have been disguised as personality. I have a real job in education. I support students and staff with hearing services, assistive technology, devices, training, troubleshooting, and the kind of problems that sound small until the thing that is not working is the thing a student needs in order to access the room. I have schoolwork because I am also completing my degree. I write books. I build workshops. I make podcast episodes and videos. I plan art. I answer messages about projects I began when I had more courage than calendar. I am a husband, which is not a job, though marriage does have recurring meetings and an alarming amount of logistics. I am a friend, a family member, and the person who remembers how to make a document look like it belongs in the room where it will be presented. None of these is a hobby. That is the problem. A hobby is supposed to be something you do without converting it into output. I do not know her well. I have tried hobbies. I approach them like a development team. If I cook something new, I begin thinking about a segment. If I take photographs, I think about a visual series. If I enjoy a conversation, I hear the episode title before the person has finished the story. If I read for pleasure, one part of my brain is enjoying the book, while another part is taking notes about structure like an unpaid intern. There is always a small producer inside me, asking whether the moment can be used. That producer wakes up before I leave the bed. The producer is not the only one awake. Jay is already moving through the morning, like the day sent him an agenda in advance. He knows where his keys are. He knows what time he needs to leave. He has not opened the weather app 3 times, hoping the forecast will become more compatible with an outfit. I am still standing in front of the closet holding two shirts that are not different enough to justify the meeting I have called. Jay will ask whether I am wearing the thing I chose the night before, and I will tell him that the lighting has changed. The lighting has not changed. My feelings have changed, and apparently the shirt is responsible. This is where being married becomes useful, because he knows the difference between a question and a request for confirmation. When I ask, "Does this work?" I am rarely asking for a fresh design consultation. I am asking him to understand the concept, respect the labor, and tell me whether the shoes are going to become a medical issue by noon. He usually gives me the practical answer first. I usually request the emotional answer as a follow-up. Between the two, we eventually create a complete review. Then I remember the lunch. The lunch is in the refrigerator because I prepared it the night before, which should make me feel organized. Instead, I am suspicious of the person who prepared it. Nighttime me believes in containers, schedules, and the possibility that tomorrow will behave. Morning me has met tomorrow and has concerns. I put the lunch in the bag. I take the lunch back out because I forgot something. I put it in again. I walk toward the door, return for the charger, return again for the glasses I decided against, and finally leave carrying enough equipment to suggest I am opening a small branch office somewhere else. Jay looks at the bag and asks whether I have everything. Now listen. There is no correct answer to that question at 7 in the morning. I say yes because hope is free. By the time I arrive at work, I have already checked email, weather, calendar, messages, and one document I did not need to open before breakfast. I tell myself I am getting ahead. Ahead is a location I have heard about but never visited. Work is where my roles become official. There are devices, systems, appointments, teachers, students, questions, forms, rooms, passwords, carts, chargers, cables, and at least one object blinking in a way it did not blink yesterday. I like solving a problem that has edges. A device will not connect. A setting is wrong. A teacher needs a clearer way to use a tool. A student needs access to information and the current setup is getting in the way. Those problems can be frustrating, but they are honest. Something is not working. We try things until it does. Human systems rarely offer that courtesy. Sometimes the technical problem is not technical. The equipment is functioning. The process around it is not. The training happened, but nobody had time to practice. The instructions exist, but they were written by someone who has never watched a person attempt to follow them, while 25 other things are happening. A device has been placed in a room without a plan for who will charge it, carry it, update it, or remember why it was requested. Then I become translator. I translate technology into ordinary language. I translate urgency into a request that can be received. I translate between people who agree about the goal and disagree about the route. I explain the same idea 3 ways, because the first two belong to the document and the third belongs to the room. This is work I am good at, which is both a gift and a scheduling issue. When people know you can fix a thing, the thing begins finding you. A person appears at the door holding a device with the expression people use when they are carrying a small emergency. I know you are busy. That sentence is rarely followed by evidence that my busyness will be protected. I do not say that aloud because I am kind, and because sometimes the small emergency matters. I look at the device. I ask what happened. I try to help. There is satisfaction in being useful. I do not want to pretend otherwise. Some conversations about boundaries make usefulness sound like a trap we should escape entirely. I like knowing things. I like making the difficult process easier. I like when a student can participate because a barrier has been removed. I like watching a staff member's shoulders lower when the system finally makes sense. The trouble begins when usefulness becomes the only way I know how to enter a room. If I can solve something, I know where to stand. If I cannot solve it, I have to arrive as a person, and people are less measurable than solutions. At work, the day fills itself. A planned task becomes 3 urgent tasks. A meeting produces a list. A list becomes another meeting. Somebody asks for a quick explanation of a process that requires history, context, and a flowchart. I have created flowcharts. They are a cry for help with arrows. The strange thing is that I can perform competence while feeling scattered. I can walk into a meeting with the correct document, answer the question, and leave with 6 tabs open in my mind. Nobody sees the tabs. They see the answer. That creates a reputation for being reliable, prepared, creative, and able to make the system understandable. I am proud of that reputation. I am also aware that reputations are hungry. Once you feed one, it expects breakfast. There is another job running underneath the workday, looking like I have the workday. I do not mean pretending everything is perfect. I mean managing the visual and emotional information other people receive from me. I am black, queer, femme, fashionable, expressive, and often in rooms where people notice me before they know what I do. That can be joyful. I enjoy clothes. I enjoy a face that has made a decision. I enjoy walking into a room in an outfit that understands the assignment better than the meeting agenda. Presentation is not false, just because it is deliberate. Still, presentation becomes labor when the room interprets every choice. If I am too polished, somebody may assume the work came easily. If I am visibly tired, the tiredness may be read as disorganization, rather than evidence of the amount I am carrying. If I am warm, I am approachable. If I am direct, I have to monitor whether directness will be called attitude. If I am funny, the room relaxes. If I am quiet, somebody may ask whether something is wrong. This is not unique to me. Many people work 2 shifts at the same desk. the job, and the management of how the job looks on their body. Professionalism is supposedly neutral, but neutral has a dress code, a voice level, a facial expression, and a preferred relationship to emotion. Some people arrive already resembling the template. Others spend energy translating themselves into something the room recognizes as capable. I used to think the solution was to become excellent enough that nobody could question the packaging. Excellence is a poor security system. It requires constant updates. There is always another standard, another credential, another project that could prove you belong. When you are accustomed to being underestimated, accomplishment can become less about desire and more about preemptive defense. I will finish the assignment before anyone can wonder whether I can handle it. I will arrive prepared before anyone can interpret my style as frivolous. I will know the system, improve the document, anticipate the question, and carry extra information in case the room asks me to justify my presence. That strategy works. That is what makes it dangerous. People trust me. Opportunities appear. My skills grow. I also begin to believe rest is something I can take after nobody could reasonably need anything else from me. That time does not exist. At some point during the day, I will catch my reflection in a dark computer screen. The face looks composed. The eyes are doing administrative work. I may think, "You are doing well." I may also think, "You have been performing doing well since breakfast." Both are true. One morning, the day proved the point before I had finished my coffee. I had arrived with a plan that looked reasonable on paper. There were a few devices to check, a training document to clean up, a question from a teacher, and one meeting that had been described as quick. Quick is a word people use when they mean the problem belongs to you for less than an hour. I set my bag down, opened the first email, and heard my name from the doorway. The person standing there was holding a piece of equipment with both hands. The way people hold something when they want you to understand that it has betrayed them personally. They said it had stopped working. I asked what stopped meant. No sound? No connection? No power? Intermittent? Only in one room? They looked at me with the expression people use when the distinction feels disrespectful to their emergency. It just does not work. That sentence is not information, but it is a feeling. I know how to translate it. It means the person has already tried what they know. Somebody is waiting. The clock is moving. And now the device has become proof that the day is against them. So I took it and checked the obvious things first, because the obvious things deserve a chance to be innocent. Battery, cable, settings, pairing, and the small switch everybody insists they checked that has somehow moved itself into the wrong position. The problem was not dramatic. It was a setting. The relief in the room was larger than the repair. That is one reason I like this work. Access can be interrupted by something tiny, and fixing the tiny thing can return a person to the room. There is a clean satisfaction in that. It is also how the first task of the day recruits 6 relatives. While I was fixing the device, another message came in. Then somebody asked whether I had a minute. Then a document needed a sentence changed because the sentence made sense to the people who wrote the system and almost nobody who had to use it. By 10:30, my original list had become historical fiction. I moved between rooms with my laptop open, a cable in one hand, and the growing suspicion that I had left my water somewhere permanent. Every time I found a place to sit, somebody needed the chair, the outlet, the information, or the version of me who could make the next thing less confusing. I am good in that kind of day. That is important to admit. I can prioritize quickly. I can hear the question under the rushed explanation. I can keep my voice calm while a system is being blamed for having the exact limitations it had yesterday. Competence feels good in the body. It makes the room trust you. It also makes the room forget you were supposed to eat. Near lunch, I opened the refrigerator and found the food I had packed with the optimism of a person who believed he would encounter a break. I took it out, set it on a table, and answered one message while it heated. Then I answered another one. When I returned, the food was cold again. There are days when adulthood is mostly reheating the same meal until you accept that it has entered another phase of life. I put it back in the microwave. Somebody walked in with a question. I answered while the timer counted down. The machine beeped. We both ignored it because the question had become a small meeting. By the third heating, I ate standing up. That is the kind of detail nobody includes when they call you dependable. They see the fix. They do not see the lunch becoming an appliance demonstration. They see the clean document, the calm training, the student connected to what they needed. They do not see you searching your own bag for a granola bar at 4 o'clock because the person who remembers everybody else's access forgot to provide his own body with a chair and a plate. I am not telling this story because I was the only hardworking person in the building. I was surrounded by people carrying invisible lists of their own. That is what makes the whole thing harder to interrupt. Everybody is managing something. Nobody wants to be the person who says the small request is one request too many. The day did not collapse, which is part of the trap. I handled it. The device worked, the training moved forward, and the emails received answers. I left with the satisfying exhaustion of somebody who had been useful in several directions. Then I sat in the car and could not remember which song had been playing when I arrived. The whole day had happened, and I had spent most of it as a response. I sat in the car for a minute before starting it. Not a healing minute, not a beautiful pause, where I listened to my needs and became a person with a calm playlist. I sat there because the next action required choosing a song, and the idea of choosing one more thing felt disrespectful. The phone lit up with the evening shift already introducing itself. A school notification, a project message, a reminder about something I had scheduled during a more confident week. One email with the word quick in the subject line, which is how email lets you know it has no respect for history. I turned the screen over. Then I turned it back because I wanted to see whether anything was actually urgent. This is the little dance I do with availability. I announce a boundary and immediately ask whether the boundary has received any messages. Nothing was on fire. Nobody had lost access. The world had continued for almost a full minute without my participation. I started the car and drove home in silence long enough to hear how tired I was. That sounds dramatic, but fatigue has a sound. It is the way you miss a turn, you know. It is the way a red light feels personal. It is the way you reach for the radio and decide even another human voice is asking too much. By the time I pulled in, I had recovered enough language to say hello like I belonged to the house, and was not simply arriving as the final task of the workday. Lunch is the part of the day where I prove I can turn eating into an appointment. I may have food. I may have remembered to bring it. These are separate achievements. The food can remain in a refrigerator while I answer one more email, fix one more setting, or tell myself I will eat after the next task. The next task has descendants. By the time I stop, lunch has become a late afternoon negotiation. My body is irritated, and I am irritated that the body has entered the schedule without checking availability. After bariatric surgery, eating has changed in practical ways. Portion, timing, texture, fullness, and the relationship between what looks like enough and what actually is enough all require attention. Attention is another resource, and workdays already spend it quickly. I do not want every conversation about my body to become a lesson about discipline. The body is not a motivational poster. Some days I plan well. Some days I realize I have been carrying food through a building like a prop. There is also the strange social life of lunch. People talk. They ask what you are eating. They comment on how much or how little is on the plate. They may mean nothing. The body hears history anyway. I have spent years having my body treated like public information. Weight changes invite congratulations, questions, theories, concern, comparison, and the occasional person who behaves as if my smaller clothing size has personally validated their worldview. At work, I often do not have the energy to turn lunch into a seminar. I want to eat the thing and return to the device that is blinking. So I sit, take a few bites, and check my email. This is how one job recruits another. Lunch becomes communications. A break becomes preparation. A walk becomes a phone call. The quiet minute becomes a place to draft a caption. We speak about multitasking as though it were a talent. Most multitasking is simply two activities receiving less of you. I know this and still do it. I can eat, read, respond, think about school, and mentally rewrite a paragraph from a book project at the same time. The result is not brilliance. The result is that I finish lunch without remembering the taste and later wonder why I still feel like something was missed. Something was missed. I was absent from the break I technically took. After work, the degree waits. School does not care that I have already used my reading eyes, writing hands, planning brain, and professional patience. The assignment has a rubric. Rubrics are emotionally stable. They do not adjust because your day was complicated. I have a complicated relationship with education because I believe in it and resent its paperwork with equal sincerity. I am studying because the degree matters. It changes what I can do, where I can move, and how the work I already perform can be recognized. I am not learning from zero. I bring years of experience into the program. I have worked with students, behavior, special education, technology, access, and the daily difference between a plan that sounds good and a plan that survives contact with a real classroom. Then an assignment asks me to explain something I have done for years in a format designed to prove I understand it. That can be useful. It can also feel like being asked to draw a map of the room while standing in it. I open the laptop, read the instructions, then read them again because the first pass happened through fatigue. I highlight the verbs: identify, explain, analyze, reflect. Reflect is a dangerous word when you are tired. It suggests depth while the body is requesting a horizontal surface. I begin writing. The first paragraph is too formal. I delete the sentence that sounds like it was raised by a textbook. I try again. I tell myself to write like a person who knows the work, not a person pleading to be believed. This is one of the jobs underneath being a student, translating lived knowledge into institutional language without allowing the institution to replace the lived part. I know how easy it is for writing to become correct and empty. Education has many sentences nobody would say aloud. They contain all the right terms and no visible child. I want the work to remember the room, the student who needs more time, the teacher trying to manage 3 needs at once, the device that works in training and becomes difficult when the bell rings, the family receiving a document full of words that do not sound like their child. That specificity takes longer. Everything I care about takes longer. This is not always noble. Sometimes I overbuild because completion makes me anxious. If the assignment is finished, it can be judged. If I keep improving it, I remain in control. Perfectionism is often described as high standards. Mine sometimes looks like fear wearing office clothes. Jay may ask how much I have left. I say, I am almost done. Almost done is one of my recurring genres. He knows not to trust it as a measurement. Almost done can mean 20 minutes, 2 hours, or the document has opened a new emotional corridor. He has his own work, plans, and exhaustion. Marriage does not create an assistant for your ambitions. It creates another person whose evening is also real. That matters because busyness can become selfish while continuing to look productive. I may believe I am working hard for our future. Jay is living with me in the present, where the dishwasher still needs emptying, and we said we would watch something together. The future has excellent branding. The present is holding a dish towel. Jay was in the kitchen doing something that had a clear beginning and end. A dish was dirty. He washed it. The dish became clean. I watched with the envy of a person whose work keeps producing more work whenever it is touched. He asked how much schoolwork I had left. I said I was almost done, and both of us heard the historical inaccuracy in real time. What I meant was that I could see the end from where I was standing. That is not the same as being near it. You can see a mountain from very far away, beloved. He asked whether I wanted to eat first. I said I could finish the paragraph while the food was heating. Then I opened the document and found a sentence that needed one small change, which introduced me to 3 other sentences behaving suspiciously nearby. The food finished heating. I did not. Jay did not make a speech. He put the plate where I could reach it and went back to the kitchen. That quiet kindness made me feel grateful and a little ashamed. Because sometimes the person working hard for a shared future is also the person making the shared evening wait. I closed the document long enough to eat at the table. This should not qualify as character development, but here we are. We talked about the day. Not the mission statement, the actual day. Something irritating. Something funny. A person who had asked a question in a way that made the question longer than the answer. He told me part of his day. I almost turned it into a comparison with mine and caught myself before making exhaustion competitive. Marriage will humble you like that. You can be carrying a lot and still not be the only person carrying groceries into the house. After the school assignment, the creative work begins, or I tell myself it will. This is where things become complicated because the creative work is the part I chose. Nobody assigned me the podcast, the books, the chapbooks, the videos, the workshops, the art prompts, the documentary ideas, or the new novel that arrived while 3 other projects were still asking where I had been. I chose them because I love making things. I also chose too many of them because ideas make promises schedules cannot keep. An idea arrives without carrying its own labor. It appears complete in the imagination. The cover is beautiful. The episode is moving. And the book exists. The audience understands exactly what I meant. Nobody in the idea has to format the pages, revise the middle, record clean audio, write a description, fix the broken link, or remember which version is final. That work belongs to future Cable, a man I have treated with shocking disrespect. I leave him files named Final, Final 2, Final Repair, Use this one, and Final Actual. I give him deadlines invented during moments of confidence. I schedule projects near one another because they look small when viewed as titles. Then evening arrives, and future Cable discovers he is present Cable. The creative life is often romantic from the outside. People see the cover, the reading, the finished PDF, the episode, the photograph, the announcement. The inside is folders, revisions, usage rights, exports, captions, email, file sizes, and the sentence you have read so many times it no longer belongs to language. I love the inside too. I love shaping a project until it finally sounds like itself. I love watching scattered pieces form a book. I love the moment when a title stops being a label and becomes a door. The danger is letting every creative desire become a production obligation. I can turn inspiration into debt very quickly. A new idea should feel like possibility. Mine sometimes arrives with a due date and a marketing plan. That is not the idea's fault. That is my habit of trying to secure joy by organizing it. I tell myself that if I build the project completely, nobody can take it from me. If I finish the book, make the cover, prepare the submission, create the companion material, and plan the event, then the idea becomes real enough to survive doubt. The result is a life full of real things and a person who occasionally cannot remember what he enjoyed before it became deliverable. People ask what I do for fun. I should have an answer ready. I do many things that look fun. I write, make art, watch movies, cook, plan outfits, take photographs, travel when I can, talk to friends, and build strange creative worlds before making documents that explain those worlds. The problem is that I have professionalized my own pleasure so thoroughly that the question feels like an audit. What do you do that does not produce anything? I do not know. I have attempted to answer with television, but I take notes while watching television. I analyze why a scene worked. I imagine a video response. I think about the costume design. I pause to explain the social meaning of a line to Jay, who may have been trying to enjoy the program. He will sometimes look at me and say, "Can we just watch it?" This is a reasonable request and an attack on my department. I have tried crafts, which become product development. Walking, which becomes content planning with movement. And reading for pleasure, which somehow becomes comparative analysis. It is not that I cannot enjoy anything. I enjoy a lot. I have trouble allowing enjoyment to remain undocumented. Part of this comes from being creative. Ideas connect naturally. Part of it comes from ambition. Part of it comes from growing up with the sense that time and money should be used carefully. A hobby that does not improve you, earn something, help someone, or produce evidence can feel wasteful when you learn that waste was dangerous. There is also the modern pressure to monetize every gift. If you bake well, sell it. If you speak well, build a platform. If you dress well, create links. If you know something, make a course. If you have survived something, turn it into a brand story. The internet looks at a private joy and asks about scalability. Sometimes I want to make a terrible painting and let it remain terrible in my house. Even saying that, I can feel myself imagining the episode about making the terrible painting. The producer is still awake. One night, I tried to do something purely because I enjoyed it. I bought a small set of art supplies, cleared a space, and promised myself the result did not have to become anything. 10 minutes later, I had selected a possible title. 15 minutes later, I was thinking about whether the pieces should become a series. At 20 minutes, I caught myself considering paper size for an exhibition that did not exist. Baby, I had not finished the first ugly little drawing. That is how quickly pleasure can become a department around here. So I made a rule. I was not allowed to photograph it. I was not allowed to name it. I was not allowed to decide what it meant. I could make the thing, dislike the thing, and put the thing in a drawer without asking it to support the brand. The rule made me uncomfortable, which was useful information. Without the possibility of showing the result, I noticed how often I use an audience to get through the awkward middle of learning. If somebody may see the finished thing, the beginner discomfort feels like an investment. If nobody will see it, I have to decide whether the activity itself is enough. That is a rude question for a person with my relationship to output. I kept going. The drawing remained bad in several exciting directions. I enjoyed one line. I ruined another. I laughed because the object had no career prospects and still existed. Then I put it away. I wish I could tell you I never thought about turning that experiment into content. I thought about it while closing the drawer. But I did not take the picture. Sometimes progress is simply depriving the producer of usable footage. There are jobs we put on resumes and jobs that live inside relationships. The person who explains the form, the person who makes the family plan, the person who notices tension and adjusts the room, the person who brings humor when everyone is afraid, the person who remembers the appointment, translates the medical language, fixes the phone, reviews the email before it is sent, or chooses the restaurant because everybody else has become helpless in the presence of options. I have held many of these jobs. I have assigned some of them to others without asking. Jay is a planner. His brain likes sequence, and mine likes constellation. He can take a goal and identify the steps. I can take the same goal and create an entire visual system before we have chosen a date. This can work beautifully. It can also produce a marriage where one person becomes logistics and the other becomes expansion. We have to notice when personality becomes unpaid labor. If someone is good at planning, that does not mean they should plan every shared thing. If someone is emotionally perceptive, that does not mean they should manage every difficult conversation. If someone can cook, technology, drive, remember, soothe, entertain, or organize, the ability does not automatically become permanent assignment. I know this in theory. In practice, I still hand Jay a question because he will answer it more efficiently. He sometimes hands me a document because I will make it clearer and better looking. Love contains division of labor. The question is whether the division remains visible enough to be discussed. Some jobs become painful because they are invisible. You cannot ask for a break from work nobody agrees you are doing. The emotional manager is told they are simply more sensitive. The organizer is told they are better at details. The fixer is told they enjoy helping. The funny person is told they light up the room. Compliments can be job descriptions with no vacation policy. I am learning to ask myself a rude but useful question. Did I choose this? Or did I become good at it because nobody else stepped forward? The answer changes depending on the role. I chose writing. I chose the podcast. I chose to build books and talks and worlds. I did not always choose to be the person who makes every room easier for everyone else. The roles can overlap so completely that separating them feels like separating threads after they have been washed together. Late in the evening, I look at the list. The list is never impressed by what I completed. It is loyal to what remains. I may have worked all day, finished schoolwork, answered messages, handled household tasks, revised a script, and moved a project forward. The list presents the unchecked boxes with the calm confidence of a person who arrived after the labor. This is where busyness becomes moral if I am not careful. I begin to judge the day by output. A productive day feels good. An unproductive day requires defense. Rest has to be justified by illness, exhaustion, celebration, or scheduling. Simply being done is not a category. I know better than this. I have written about bodies, work, survival, and the cost of shrinking. I can explain why human value cannot be measured by production. Knowledge does not automatically remove the measuring device from your own hand. There are nights when I close the laptop and feel guilty because I could have done more. That sentence is always technically true. There is always more. A person could work until sleep becomes an interruption and still leave something unfinished. The issue is not whether more was possible. The issue is whether more was owed. I have confused those questions for years. Ambition tells me possibility is obligation. Talent tells me I should use every available part. History tells me opportunities can disappear. Money tells me the future needs protection. The internet tells me consistency is the difference between being seen and being forgotten. Then my body says it is tired. The body has poor branding, but excellent information. Sometimes I listen. Sometimes I negotiate until fatigue becomes a crisis, and then call the crisis justification. That is not sustainable. I dislike the word sustainable because it has been used in too many meetings, but here it is accurate. A life cannot remain beautiful if every beautiful thing becomes a responsibility. That evening, Jay asked what I wanted for dinner. This was a normal question. My brain received it as a grant application. I began listing the conditions. Something easy, something that would not make me feel too full. Something with enough protein. Something we could both tolerate. Something that did not require another store. Something that would not create dishes large enough to become tomorrow's opening argument. Jay waded through the presentation and said, "So you do not know." I said, "I have narrowed the field." He opened the refrigerator. I opened my laptop. He looked over and asked why. I told him I needed to check one thing. One thing is the evening version of quick. It has never existed. The screen opened to a document, which reminded me of an email, which reminded me of a deadline, which reminded me of a book idea that had arrived while I was trying to fix a device. I wrote down the idea because I have lost enough good ones to distrust memory. Then I adjusted the title because the title looked wrong. Then I searched for a file. By the time Jay returned with food, I was technically working on 3 projects and emotionally available to none of them. He placed the plate beside me and did not make a speech. That made the plate louder. I closed the laptop, but I was irritated about it. Not at him exactly. I was irritated that another person had noticed I was absent before I had finished calling it productivity. We ate. I talked about the day. I told him the funny parts first, because those are easier to carry into the house. The device that only needed one setting. The meal reheated 3 times. The meeting that had been quick enough to age me only slightly. Then I became quiet. He asked whether I was tired. I said no, which was inaccurate but efficient. The truth was that I had reached the hour when every role wanted proof I had not abandoned it. Work had received most of the day. School wanted attention. The creative life wanted evidence. The podcast wanted consistency. The books wanted pages. The house wanted maintenance. My marriage did not want a performance. It wanted me to stop looking through the person in front of me toward the next unfinished thing. That is the role I am worst at scheduling, because it does not announce itself as urgent. A marriage can survive one distracted dinner. A body can survive one delayed meal. A friend can survive one answer tomorrow. A creative project can survive one night without being advanced. The danger is that almost everything can survive being postponed once. A life gets shaped by what repeatedly loses the argument. I moved the laptop to another room. Not dramatically. I did not place it in a locked cabinet while music played. I carried it away because I knew I would keep touching it if it remained within reach. When I came back, Jay had started the movie without me and rewound it when I sat down. I asked what I missed. He said, "Nothing important." For once, that was good news. One weekend, I tried to do something without making it useful. I did not announce the experiment because announcing it would have become content. I chose a simple activity and made rules. I would not photograph it for posting. I would not turn it into a project. I would not research how to do it at a professional level. I would not buy a full set of supplies before learning whether I enjoyed it. The last rule was especially difficult. I like equipment. Equipment lets you feel committed before you have experienced the inconvenience of practice. I sat down with the thing and immediately noticed how bad I was. This should have been freeing. It was not. I wanted to improve. I wanted a tutorial. I wanted to understand the technique and produce evidence that the time had been well spent. Then something strange happened. I became bored. Boredom has become rare because I keep a phone nearby. Boredom used to be a room where imagination wandered. Now it is treated like a technical error. I let myself stay there. After a while, the activity became pleasant without becoming impressive or meaningful. And pleasant was enough. Nobody needed it. It did not advance a goal. It did not become part of my public work. I finished and placed it aside. The producer inside me asked whether I had learned something. I told him no. That was not entirely true. I had learned how difficult it was for me to spend time without creating a reason the time deserved to exist. But I refused to make a lesson out of it that day. I made tea. I sat with Jay. We watched something I did not take notes on. I missed part of the plot because I was thinking about work. Then I returned. That may be what rest looks like for me right now. Not a perfect empty mind. A series of returns. Before bed, I check the phone. This is a mistake presented as closure. There is an email, a message, a reminder, an idea, and a document notification, all of which could wait, and none of which identifies itself as waiting. I tell myself I will only look. Looking becomes answering. Answering opens another tab, and the day begins again. Jay may already be in bed. The house has moved into nighttime. The light from the screen gives my face the color of unfinished business. This is the moment when I can feel every role at once. Worker, student, writer, husband, creator, planner, family member, friend, and finally, a person with a body that has been patient for most of the day. None of the roles is fake. I do not want to abandon them. The goal is not to become a simpler person, because simplicity photographs well. I contain many channels. That is the name of the show for a reason. The challenge is remembering that channels can be changed. They do not all have to broadcast at once. I am allowed to be at work without drafting a book in the background. I am allowed to be with Jay without turning the conversation into a future episode. I am allowed to study without proving my entire history in every assignment. I am allowed to create something that does not immediately become a product. I am allowed to finish a day before the list is empty. That last one still sounds suspicious. I close the laptop. Not because the work is complete. It is not. I close it because the room has another person in it, and because tomorrow will need some part of me that tonight cannot keep spending. The alarm is set. The outfit is almost decided. The lunch is prepared enough to become tomorrow's problem. I have too many jobs. Some are paid, and some are chosen. Some were handed to me because I performed them well. Some need to be resigned from quietly. Some are the work of my life. I am trying to stop asking every role to prove that I matter. That may be the only job I cannot complete through better organization. The phone vibrates on the table. I leave it there. For once, nobody loses access because I am unavailable for the night.